Most people following the Nolan Wells case have already seen the same short audio clip, the one tied to the July 4th incident near Horn Island. Fewer people know what's sitting behind it. Nolan's legal team didn't stop at asking for that one recording to come out. The filing behind this request goes much further. The original recordings, sure, but also who called who and when, how long each call ran, whether anything got routed through another line or transferred, whether more than one person got patched into the same call, timestamps, dispatcher logs, and any other messages tied to that day. The time frame they're asking about is specific too, roughly 6 hours, 2 in the afternoon to 8 at night on the 4th of July, centered on the west and northwest end of Horn Island. If that full record ever comes back, it could settle things the leaked clip never could. Who actually reached out to who first, whether the timeline everyone's argued about online actually holds up, and how the different versions of that day compare against something more solid than memory. Hold on to that, because there's a lot more tangled up in this case than one recording. Horn Island itself, the boat, every communication from that day, the competing accounts of who was where, Nolan's own phone, and now this new push to get records nobody's seen yet. But there's another side to this that matters just as much.
I found out that the father of the girl who allegedly threw the party that night, used to work at Oracle.
A portion of Horn Island was sold last year for $25 million.
Service Sam here with a Nolan Xavier Wells update, and there's this odd letter. It looks like a journal entry that just hit the internet.
We are one of the oldest black families recognized by the United States of America.
The people talking about Nolan aren't only debating an investigation. They're talking about a family, a history, and a 19-year-old whose death has reshaped everyone who loved him. So tonight, we're covering both sides. First, who this family is and how they've chosen to remember him. Then the records, the subpoena, and everything investigators are still trying to pin down about July 4th. By the end, we'll draw a clear line between what's actually documented, what's still just alleged, and what nobody's been able to answer at all. Before we get into it, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from tonight, and subscribe if you want to keep up with this case as new developments come out. Here's something to sit with while we go. Not your whole theory, just one question. What's the single thing about this case you think still needs a real answer? Hold on to it, because we're coming back to it before this is over. Let's get into it.
Now, all of this is alleged, y'all. It's just alleged, okay? Hear me out. Now, in the video, the young lady who is talking, she is saying that Warren had previously already knew that night at the party that Katie was not with Nolan. Hear me now. And then Warren says that he had to call someone and ask them to ask Katie, do you know where Nolan is, right? Now, this was before he even called Miss Christine. And Katie said, no, I thought he was with you guys. Anyway, so then Warren goes outside for his alibi. He goes outside with the couple of friends that he's out there with on the dock because Miss Christine hadn't called Nolan's phone like around three different times. No reply, no answer. Warren said, well, I called her one time and she didn't answer. Then he calls back again and he tells Miss Christine, or says, have you seen Nolan? Miss Christine's like, no, I thought he was with you. While she's talking on the phone to him, she looks on the 360 app and she tells him, because he never told her that he had Nolan's phone. It was when she saw the 360 app that shows that he's like, oh yeah, we have it. And then he even tells her that Katie is with Nolan. Nolan is with Katie. He lied. I know that it makes you guys feel so much better when you guys can sit here and talk about the Wells family and run their name in the ground. However, let me prove to you that you lie and that she was not given yet afforded the ability to even look at the autopsy results and or other. Hold on. So if you can read, because a lot of y'all can't on this app, then you would have read where it tells you that the family and the law firm has been complying versus the DA and the ME and those other folk over there are refusing to stick to what they said they would do, and have even yet so far as gone to not even allow Dr. Mitchell to complete his second autopsy findings or not regarding the death of Nolan Wells. So what you talking about? Because it seems like you're lying. It seems like what y'all love to do. Okay? Have a good day. I thought it strange that yesterday was Nolan Wells' birthday and those alleged associates had their attorney post a picture that looks like it was about 4 or 5 years old. Maybe because, Warren, bro, My God, I'm just saying. So that just is a continuation to show you that if you had to go that far to post a picture of your friend, your bro, your buddy, lets us know that you guys weren't really that deeply in the friendship. And all of those other pictures that you guys have continuously posted or was shared by Tatum were all edited, and which is, again, like I said, you could clearly tell that all of those images were altered and edited to make Nolan appear in those pictures as though that you guys really had this extensive friendship. Because why, of all the pictures in the world, will y'all go back a couple of years? Like, it absolutely makes no sense. But I digress. Y'all be blessed.
I want you to take a look at this video with me real quick.
Our family, my family, the Wells family, we are one of the oldest black families recognized by the United States of America. In fact, we're older than the United States of America. But that's another story for another time. We've served in every war this country has had, and our forefathers have given land to the United States to secure our southern borders during our country's infancy. We've provided resources to secure the Commonwealth of South Mississippi. We've contributed so much that I couldn't even name it all. But the Dantzlers, the Goodyears, the Cumberses, and South Mississippi know of us. See, it's way deeper than you think. At a time and place where Negroes were known to receive the worst treatment, we had long established ourselves alongside a relationship with Southern Mississippi and the United States of America, just as we do today in serving our communities in various ways, skills, and fields. Cuz's legacy, Nolan Wells, is part of that. From the life he lived and those he filled with love, to the knowledge of his name and the energy that gives. Let it be used to bring us closer as a community, because that's what he was. He was a Wells. And that's who we are. We love. No cuz, no us, and respect that. That's all we ask.
I know y'all remember this.
You have no idea who you're dealing with.
Any corruption and cover-up starts with your connections.
Ocean Springs is going to have Ocean Springs back.
And guess what town the DA lives in? Ocean Springs.
I understand the public's urgency to know what happened to Nolan, but we are not taking time for time's sake.
Do this not remind you of the Drewski skit when he was doing Erica Kirk?
But we are not taking time for time's sake.
The Mississippi Rising Coalition recently posted this with questions on Facebook for the DA. One question, does the DA have any personal relationships with the friend's parents? And the second one, because she's involved in a lot of these local women's groups, even women's Republican groups, does she have any connection with Judge Ashley Cole? And would that be a conflict of interest? And asking if she should recuse herself from an investigation involving a child of one of her professional colleagues.
Cox on ground. Listen, I got something for y'all today. You're gonna freaking be jaw dropped when I tell you this. But guess what? A portion of Horn Island was sold last year for $25 million. Hold on, let me show you. About 5.8% of Horn Island is owned by individual people. There's about 174 acres, and I think it's spanned about 16 different parcels that go from east to west across Horn Island. Now, the kicker in this is who owns a portion of the stock in this. I'll give you one guess. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you that you have to do your research on this one, because damn it, I can't really say much more than that. I hope this has really put a fire under your asshole to go view some more stuff about who owns what around here in South Mississippi, as well as what is possibly on the Woolmarket exit, also known as Shriners, Freemason. Anyway, y'all stay blessed and have a good night. I'll see y'all later. Please go check out my backup account that is linked in the bio. Thank you.
They're going to come for my career.
You said that.
I told them, I was like, they're going to come for my career. I don't know if it is going to be now, in a few weeks, in a few months. I said, but I'm telling you, they are going to come for my career. And when I say they, I'm not talking about any specific group of people, just people who don't like the fact that we are just wanting answers.
Yeah.
We're just
time out. it appears that all the black people support you. Who is going to come for your job? According to the internet, of what has been presented on the internet and publicly, she only has one complaint. She has not been fired. I think her conduct should get her fired. The statement that she made at that press conference. Now, you can say whatever you want to say, but if a white person came out and said, you got to talk to your kids about hanging around black people, pretty much, the way they move in spaces where people don't look like them. If a person says something so racially charged and biased, I think that person should not be working in a setting where they have to deal with the people in which they claim that you got to be careful around. That's not reasonable. That's not practical. You are a professional. You can't be telling, I raise my kids to watch out, especially if people don't look like you. That is racial. That is a racist thing to say. That is a bias and prejudice thing to say. If a white lady came out and said that, I think it's wrong and I think she shouldn't have her job, and then somebody fired over her saying that, but even then, nobody's firing her. She got one complaint on her job. Ashley Cole, Warren's stepmother, has gotten hundreds of complaints. The woman doing the autopsy, the coroner's office, hundreds of complaints, thousands of complaints, thousands of people calling and trying to get them fired and threatening to kill them. I'm even getting threats just because I interviewed.
Did y'all see them celebrating Nolan's birthday?
Oh, let's thank God for the gift of life that we did not take for granted.
Well, that's a tearjerker.
Sad, man. Sad.
It's a tearjerker there. It's so heartbreaking seeing Christine and Elmore trying to stay strong for their family and not break down while celebrating their baby boy's first birthday since he passed away. And it was a beautiful celebration. Christine also made a post. She said, "Today you are 19, No. There are so many things we want to say, but we will keep it simple. As we sit here and reflect on what an amazing kiddo you grew up to be, we can't help but to feel blessed, honored, proud, but most of all, thankful. Thankful we were able to experience a glimpse of God's love in human form. Although you are no longer physically here with us, we will always celebrate you and the legacy you have left us to protect. You have taught us so much about life and how every day is a blessing and how we have to do better at just living in the moment. Thank you for being the best son, brother, grandson, nephew, and friend anyone could ask for. Thank you for bringing joy, laughter, and real happiness to us each and every day. You are truly our angel. Raising you has been an absolute joy and honor. You will be missed every second of every day, and you will never be forgotten, our sweet sunshine. Happy heavenly 19th birthday, No. Remember, don't eat too much Oreo cake and hug grandma for us. We love you, our beloved son and brother. Love, mom, dad, siblings, Louie, Ling, and family." And then she had to put a disclaimer at the bottom that says, "Keep negative comments to yourself. Remember, Nolan is my and Elmore's son, who we lost." It's really a shame that she even has to put a disclaimer like that on her post. Motherfuckers are just evil in this world. It don't make no goddamn sense that a grieving mother has to ask people to leave negative comments off of her post celebrating her deceased son's birthday. That don't make no goddamn sense.
To those who are going to comment they can't watch the show anymore because of the support, no worries.
With you today.
Yeah, this is about to be a Miss Rachel and Bluey household. I don't even got kids. It's about to be me and the damn dogs watching it on every device, on the TV, on the iPad. Girl, we got you. Don't even worry about it, Rachel.
I pulled the records, and look what was filed today in the Nolan Wells estate case. The legal team has issued a subpoena to CETO Services International, demanding records connected to that July 4th call. This is not somebody asking nicely on Facebook. This is a court-issued demand for records, electronically stored information, and the materials identified in Exhibit A. And baby, they didn't just ask for a little audio clip everybody has been passing around. They are asking for the original native recordings, call detail records, caller identification, dial numbers, start and end times, routing, transfers, conferences, dispatcher information, messages, dispatch record, and the system Jews to preserve those communications. And here's where it gets interesting. The subpoena specifically defines the incident as a July 4th request for assistance near the west or northwest tip of Horn Island, including the report that the bilge pump had stopped working, the vessel was taking on water or sinking, the request for a tow to Fort Bayou, communications between the dispatcher and the CETO captain, a separate communication involving the vessel owner, member, relative, or grandfather, and any attempted transfer or conference with the caller. Did you hear me? They want the whole communication chain. The principal time window they identify as 2 p.m. through 8 p.m. Central Time on July 4th.
Mo, I'm scrolling through Instagram the other week, and they even created AIs of you buying sports cars.
Oh my, we just saw that. I was like, what? That doesn't even look. No, I'm happy with my little car. Like, I'm not trying to.
But the intentionality of wickedness,
absolutely, it's
to
disgusting.
give a bad portrayal is something I've never seen.
No.
At this level and at this height. And the end game, I think, is just intimidation.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times when you hear cyberbullying, I'm thinking it's middle schoolers. So cyberbullying is in high school, but not for adults who are grieving.
Nolan Wells, the blackout in Gary, Indiana, public lynchings of black people. What do those three things have in common? All of these were stories that the mainstream news media did not report until we started making them trend on social media. And by we, I mean black folks. I'm talking about us. Sorry if you're not tribe. I'd be jealous if I were you, but that's not the point of this conversation. The point of this conversation is this. We know that the algorithms are trash. We know that the algorithm is built against us and people who talk about what we talk about. We know that these algorithms and these platforms are controlled by billionaires who want to control us. And we have more power than we think. So when we decide to get in unison, be one band, one sound, we can actually dictate the terms of the news instead of the news dictating the terms to us. Never ever forget your power and keep on saying them names. And make sure that you're subscribed to Black-owned media, independent media, Joy Reid, Roland Martin, Don Lemon, The Root, The Griot. They are telling our stories responsibly, with care, and with truth. All right? We ain't got to pay attention to the people. We got our own.
Bet you $1,000,000 if it was 5 black boys and 1 white boy on the boat. By now, there would have been an arrest, there would have been a warrant, there would have been a seizure, but because America doesn't believe that Black Lives Matter, they trying to act offended because we want to ask the question, what happened to our brother?
That's right. Talk that talk. Talk that talk.
And when we ask the question, what happened? The response is we're still gathering information. We're waiting on toxicology, waiting on the grand jury. Am I my brother's keeper? That's the question underneath every delayed subpoena, every sealed file, every complaint filed against a grieving mother's nursing license. Instead of asking whoever left her son on the island, the institutional Mississippi still muttering Cain's excuse, it's not my problem. I wanted to come to Mississippi today from Georgia to let the system and to let the establishment know, let that be the last time you try to intimidate a black mother. She's got every right to fight for her son, to stand for her son, to question her son, and you better not mess with her nurse's license. Leave that black woman alone. And I want them to know if the dirt wouldn't be quiet, what makes you think the water's gonna be quiet? Because black people know something about coming through the water.
Mike, it looks like your boat's taking on water, bud.
Here are actual examples of boats in distress, sinking, taking on water, needing to be rescued and towed. Because I do not believe the alibi of those folks.
Y'all, just when I thought things could not get worse, this case is just taking all types of turns. Like, it's crazy. Now that we done found out that the DA husband is an FBI agent, like, we can't even get help from the FBI. But y'all, hear me out. Whatever's in Nolan's phone, the DA know what's inside the phone. They've been talking to the granddaddy, they've been talking to the parents, the judge. Man, these people are connected. You got governors, you got people that own Horn Island, CETO, public relations, you got doctors, anesthesiologists. Like, these people, this is bad. This is really bad. In GTA, these people could run a whole organ trafficking if they wanted to.
This is crazy. This is beyond crazy. They know what's in the phone. They already been in contact with the kids. They know what happened. Everybody just got to stick to the story. That's why they want to all of a sudden demand the phone, because they want to delete what's in the phone that will prove what actually happened to him. A lot of people have sent me private messages saying that Nolan had a video recording of them either doing rugs or Wyatt doing rugs,
brother getting whooped,
or Warren's little brother getting beat up at one of his MAA.
If you go back through everything connected to this case, it's really telling two different stories at once. One is the investigation, subpoenas, timelines, competing accounts. The other is about a family trying to hold on to who Nolan actually was. Start with the family side, because it's easy to lose track of once the case gets buried in filings and theories. In footage tied to this case, one relative talks at length about the Wells name in South Mississippi, family who served in the military, land that stayed with them for generations, and roots in that part of the state that go back further than most people would guess. Worth flagging up front, none of that has been checked against outside genealogical or historical records, so what you're getting is the family's own account of their history, not a verified one. We'll frame it that way and move on. What it does tell you is how the Wells family sees Nolan's story, not as an isolated tragedy, but as part of something much bigger than one summer and one investigation. The message coming from that side has stayed fairly consistent, centered on faith, unity, and a continued push for real answers. Then there's the part of this that's easy to lose sight of once you're deep in the legal side of things. Nolan Wells was 19 years old. Outside of everything this case has produced on paper, he was somebody's kid, a brother, a grandson people adored, a friend to plenty of others his age. And this year, his family marked a birthday for the first time without him in the room. That's the version of this story that doesn't trend the way a leaked audio clip does. But it's the one sitting underneath everything else we're about to get into. Now to the investigation side, starting with what might be the single biggest development in this case so far, just how much that subpoena is actually asking for. The request was reportedly directed at CTO Services International, and it goes far past releasing one audio file. It's after the technical side of every relevant call, whose number placed it, when it started and ended, how it was routed, whether it got transferred somewhere else, whether anyone else joined partway through, and whatever the dispatcher logged in real time as it happened. Here's why that combination matters more than any single piece. One record on its own barely tells you anything, but line a call's start time up against a dispatcher's log, then check that against a routing record showing where the call went next, and you start building something closer to an actual sequence of events, rather than one person's account of a chaotic afternoon. If two people's stories about who called who first don't match, records like these are what would actually settle it, not whoever tells the story with more confidence. What the filing describes is a call for help on the 4th of July, somewhere near the west or northwest tip of Horn Island. A boat, according to that description, had a bilge pump running and was taking on water to the point where sinking was a real possibility, and somebody on board needed a tow. The communications tied to that call apparently involved a dispatcher, a sea tow captain, and at least one more person connected to the vessel. And all of it circles back to the same open questions. The order things actually happened in, who was in touch with who and at what point, where the phones actually were through all of it, what shape the boat was really in, and what happened in the immediate aftermath. A full set of records is really the only way to answer any of that with confidence, instead of just picking whichever account sounds most convincing. Which brings us to the accounts that don't agree with each other at all. Now for the part of this case that's generated more arguments online than almost anything else. What Warren, Katie, and Christine actually knew, and when they knew it. Depending on which version you've come across, you'll hear that Warren already knew Katie wasn't with Nolan that day, or that Warren reached out to someone specifically to ask where Katie was. There's a separate version involving Christine and some kind of location detail, and yet another claim that Warren once said, flatly, that Katie was with Nolan. Notice that some of those versions can't all be true at once, and none of them get settled by whoever argues loudest in a comment section. What settles it is whether there's an actual call record behind a claim that a call happened, real location data behind a claim about where somebody was, or a digital message behind something somebody says got sent. The job isn't picking which person to believe going in. It's checking every version against whatever can actually be verified. Then there's Nolan's phone, which has become a magnet for speculation on its own. Some corners of the internet are convinced it held recordings involving other people connected to this case. Maybe, but nobody's actually produced those recordings for anyone to see, which means treating their existence as settled fact isn't something we're willing to do here. What would actually move this forward isn't more speculation about what might be sitting on that phone. It's finding out whether the phone was ever recovered and preserved in the first place, whether it's gone through an actual forensic examination, and if so, what came off it, recoverable or deleted, recordings or timestamps, or anything that could help pin down where Nolan was, and who he was in contact with that day. Those are answerable questions. A theory built on a phone nobody's confirmed contains anything isn't. Now for the property angle, which has probably generated more amateur detective work than anything else in this case. Somewhere around 5.5% of Horn Island, close to 174 acres, split across a handful of parcels, is privately owned, which is already unusual on an island that's almost entirely protected wilderness. Online sleuths have connected some of those parcels to the Edmundston name and a stretch called the Mid-Island Tract. And people have spent a fair amount of time lining up old photographs against satellite images, trying to make the case. Here's the problem with stopping there. Confirming who owns a piece of land doesn't confirm anything about Nolan's death. For that leap to mean something, you'd need a lot more. Exactly where the parcel sits, who actually owned it at the time of the incident, when they acquired it, where the boundaries fall, who had access to it, and whether that location connects to anything in Nolan's documented movements that day. Owning land near where something happened isn't the same as being involved in what happened there, and treating it like it is gets the whole case sloppier, not clearer. Same standard applies to a comment that circulated from someone identifying themselves as a retired Coast Guard official, suggesting more people might be tied to this than anyone said publicly. It's the kind of line that gets clipped and reposted everywhere, and it might eventually mean something. But a comment from somebody online isn't evidence of anything on its own. If there's a real claim buried in there about where certain people actually were, the next move is the same as with the property angle. Pull the actual parcel records, the actual ownership documents, the actual location data, and see if any of it lines up against a timeline that's already been documented, rather than against another rumor stacked on top of a comment. That same need for actual proof instead of implication carries right into the next set of questions, the ones aimed squarely at the district attorney's office. Now, the questions aimed at the district attorney's office, and there are a few: whether certain relationships should have led to a recusal, whether the investigation's been handled the way it should, questions about the autopsy, about Nolan's phone, about whether this should have gone federal by now. Worth separating those out, because they're not really one question. A sealed or unreleased autopsy raises its own transparency issue, regardless of who's running the investigation. A push for federal involvement is more a statement about whether people trust the local process to finish the job. Folding all of it into one general complaint about the DA makes for a cleaner headline, but it also makes it harder to tell which specific question ever actually gets answered. One claim in particular keeps circulating, that the district attorney's husband has some kind of professional tie to federal law enforcement. That's not something to just accept at face value. It needs to be verified independently before it means anything. And even if confirmed, a professional connection on its own doesn't prove misconduct. What would actually matter is what role that person played, whether they had any hand in this specific investigation, and whether any actual rule or procedure got crossed because of it. That distinction matters more than people give it credit for. Pointed questions aren't an accusation. Wanting more transparency isn't the same as proving somebody did something wrong. There's a lot of room to push hard on how this investigation's been run, without turning every professional connection into proof of a conspiracy. And that's the bar this story needs to clear. Here's a pattern worth naming, because this case is far from the only one where it shows up. The more emotional a case gets, the faster random details start getting stitched together into one big theory before anybody's actually checked whether they belong together. A property record surfaces, somebody digs up an old photo, a stray comment gets screenshotted and passed around, and pretty soon it all starts feeling connected, even though some of it might genuinely matter. Some of it might have nothing to do with any of this, and some of it might just be wrong. What actually settles that isn't confidence, it's records. call logs, dispatch notes, location data, property filings, whatever's actually sitting in the court record, whatever forensic work has actually been done. Not because any single one of those guarantees an answer, but because they're the only things here that can actually be checked instead of just believed. And underneath every one of those records is still a person, not a theory. Christine's own message about Nolan cuts through a lot of the noise. Gratitude for the time she got with him, the happiness he brought into the family, the legacy he's already left behind, and a direct ask that people leave the negativity out of it. Whatever anyone believes about how this investigation's been handled, there's a real family on the other side of every comment section, holding both things at once, grieving somebody they loved, while still wanting real answers about what happened to him. One of those is emotional. The other depends entirely on evidence. So, back to where this started. A full 6-hour record from July 4th could settle the order calls came in, confirm or kill one version of that day, or it could just open up new questions nobody's asked yet. Nobody knows which, and that's exactly why it's worth watching closely. Same logic applies to Horn Island. If real property records ever tie a specific parcel to something that actually connects to Nolan's documented movements, that's worth covering. If they don't, the theory stays a theory, not a fact, no matter how many people online have already decided otherwise. None of this is about protecting anybody or defending an institution, and it's not about chasing down every rumor that gets traction either. This case is still moving. There's more expected to come out of it in the months ahead, and whatever that turns out to be, the same standard applies to it too. It comes down to something simpler. Follow whatever the records actually show, hold every claim up against them, and be upfront about the parts nobody can answer yet. So here's the same question from the top of this video. What's the one thing about Nolan Wells' case you think still needs a real answer? Not a whole theory, just the one question. Drop it below. And if you want to stay with this case as new filings and developments come in, subscribe and turn on notifications, because we're not walking away from this one. We'll keep separating what's confirmed from what's just claimed, and we'll keep following wherever the actual record leads. For Nolan, and for a family still waiting on the truth,